Good morning, this is Cathy, the hands-on designer, and happy Hygge holiday. And I'm actually not here to talk to you about the large sampler piece today for the Hygge holiday chart and the Hygge holiday SAL 2024. That's being led by Nicole Spohr, and I've had the pleasure of working with her and Chantal of 141 Design Company on this fun project. So we've had a lot of fun seeing your finishes. So many of you are done already. A lot of you are keeping up. Some of you have said, I bought the project, but I'm gonna wait till winter. That's awesome. The lovely color changes. That's been so inspiring to see. So as I said, I'm not here today to talk about the sampler, but let me find a safe space to put this down. My table's a little crowded, but I'm here today to talk about the ornaments. All right, there were 5 in all, and as I've mentioned in several videos and posts, I chose my sampler I did in the blues colorway on antique white Belfast linen, but my ornaments, I chose to stitch those in the various colorways that I showed in the chart, just to give you an idea of what those would look like. So let's get them all sorted here. My tree and my deer, oh dear, I did in what I call the original colorway. This closely resembles the actual original piece of art. And that's again, on the antique white. And then this is the winter forest. And I did that on a 32 count kind of I believe this is flax. Going off the top of my head on that one. But I just wanted to give it just a little different background color. All right, and then of course the 4 square Hygge is in the classic holiday colors. All very pretty, and I can't wait to put them all on my tree this year. I'm probably going to stitch a couple more as gifts and try some of the other colorways that I've seen out there. I've definitely had a couple moments of like, why didn't I do that? So I love, you all inspire me with my own stitching. So, but what I wanted to talk about today, as I said, I would be talking a little more about how I finished my ornaments. So as you can see, it's a pretty traditional flat finish. I don't know how Nicole's going to finish hers. We talked about it briefly, but this is the fun part about doing these types of collaborations and we talked about this up front, is I'll be finishing them my way, and she may tweak, she may follow mine. She's a very accomplished, Nicole's a very accomplished finisher, so even if she does hers my way, I bet she tweaks it just a little bit somehow just to make it her own. And I'm excited to see that. And so I just think, I don't know, I'm can't wait to see a lot of your finishes. But what I really wanted to talk about today is not so much step by step of, the lacing and that. I'm going to make reference to that in the videos, giving you some good resources and whatnot. But what I really wanted to talk today about mostly is the edging. I wanted to demonstrate how I did that. When I had the idea of I thought about how I wanted to finish the Hygge holiday ornaments, I knew I wanted them to kind of embrace that Hygge, that comfy, cozy, simple, comfortable feeling. So I knew I wasn't going to do what I do a lot of times. I'll do cording, or I'll do rickrack or palms. But I have done some series where I call it the naked edge, where there's nothing on there. And in those cases, I get very particular about how I stitch my back to my front. The 2 separate pieces of mat board that have been covered. We'll talk about that in a moment. I've done kind of like a modified ladder stitch, whip stitch. I call it more of a slip stitch. There's lots of different words for the same thing. And the way I do it is, and I demonstrate a lot of times when I'm teaching classes, that you don't see any of your stitches on the edge. And I always tell people, if you're doing it correctly, I could give you a bright color thread to lace with, say, white or a solid color here, and you shouldn't really be able to see that thread. I mean, you might see a teeny little speck of it, but that's it. It should not draw the eye. Well, I didn't want that for these. I thought about it, but then I wanted something, I mean, I hate to use the term organic, but I wanted to use something that added to it without overpowering it. Does that make sense? To give texture. So from the front, you really, really can't see that little, that Xy edge. And I said Xy, not, anyway. But you can, because think about it, it's going to be on a tree and it's going to move and it's going to, have a little flow. And you just want the eye to catch a little bit of that on the edge. And you can see I used all different fun fabrics on the back. I love this fabric on the back. And you think, well, does that really go with the front? It does, actually. Those colors are there. We could have a whole other discussion on choosing fabrics for the back of your ornaments. That's fun for me. But I just wanted, like I said, I just wanted that little extra touch on the edge that I had a lot of fun. Actually, when I was putting them together, I dare say I had some Hygge moments when I was doing the hand stitching the front to the back. It's actually almost it's the opposite of this slip stitch that I normally do. And I really like the effect of it. So you're probably going to see me do it again in some other designs. But I want to demonstrate that. And I am going to take a few minutes to talk about how I get these shapes. A lot of times when I do ornament collections, because I have a lot of them in my catalog, I'll do shapes, because I feel like that sort of elevates the finish a little bit, just gives it a little more custom look. So I'm asked a lot, do you have a template? Do you have a template? Well, there was a time way back in the dark ages when I started designing that having a template or finishing instructions or a tutorial or a video, it wasn't the thing then. So instead of kind of going back, what I feel like I want to do is kind of educate you a little bit how I get my shapes. Now there's lots of different ways to do this. I am never going to tell you that my way is the only way or the best way. It's what works for me. So if you have a method or a way that works for you, that's fine. Do that. I'm just showing you how I do mine. And I think it's pretty easy because really you don't need special tools, other than the ordinary. So we'll talk about those tools here in a second. So yeah, I'm gonna talk to you how I get this little rounded shape, and it's actually quite easy. It's not difficult at all. But anyway, so before we go any further, before I close this down and I go over to my work table over there, I just want to tell you a few things that I used in the finishing. Oop, sorry, I told you I got some basic tools on hand. Scissors, we want, I would definitely say you want kind of some paper cutting scissors and you want some fabric cutting scissors. And a nice little X-Acto knife is handy to have. I, of course, baker's twine, use baker's twine for my hanger. And you want some needles, and I used some little palm wool felt balls. I got these from Benzie Design, BENZIE design.com. They call them, and they bounce. And they're called palms on their site. This is size small, not the extra small. This is a size small. I know that they don't look very small, but they're small. It's the perfect size, what I wanted. And of course some batting. I used the Warm and Natural batting, thin batting. And then just some pieces of mat board. I get my sheets from a local hobby store. I get the large sheets and I keep cutting them down into smaller and smaller. And these are just scraps that I have saved. When I end, I always try and make sure I have at least one or two squared up edges, because then I don't have to waste as much when I go to cut ornaments out of them later. So those are just some I do use a little bit of stitchery tape. I like the acid-free stitchery tape. If your local shop doesn't have it, I do carry this on the website. And then some lacing thread. This is just a heavy nylon upholstery weight thread. It's my favorite. You may have another one that you like. Use that. that's fine, that works. And then this is gonna sound kind of weird, and I'm not really gonna explain right away what I'm using this for. We're gonna talk about this in the video. And I have a dog incoming right now. Hi, she won't. Hi, good morning, Daisy. Good morning, how are you? You won't be able to see her, but there's a dog down there. Anyway, so I know this is kind of a funny little thing to say, you need this, and I can't explain why, but I'll be showing you here real soon. So I'm gonna stop the camera here. I'm gonna pet the dog because she's gotta go out for her morning walk. And then I'm going to move over to the other location, and let's get going. Thanks. Okay, and we are back. The dog has been petted. She's going out for her morning walk with Mr. HOD, and I can begin talking to you about how we do some finishing on your Hygge holiday ornaments. So as I said in the beginning, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how I get my shaped pieces for my different ornaments. Even back when I first started this, I knew that I wanted some kind of a domed shape on all of my ornaments. The designs just sort of lended itself to that. And even though this one was squared, you'll notice with a lot of these, they don't have real even edges. So I felt like I could even get away with that domed or that rounded corners at the top on this one that's maybe got a little more shape definition to it than the others. Oh, here's this last one too. So I just think, like I said in the beginning, I just feel like it elevates the finish. It gives it a little bit more of a custom look. And so what I do is I start by measuring. Okay, we're going to have to kind of go back to imagine this is not already finished, but I'm looking at the piece of linen or Aida that I'm measuring, and I'm getting ready to finish. I tend to like to leave from my image to the edge of my board. Over the years, I've just developed that I like either anywhere from 1/4 of an inch of linen showing to 3/8 of an inch. And really that kind of depends on, take a look at the ornament and I think, okay, what do I want to leave? Like, well, how, what's the general look of the piece? What kind of look am I trying to convey overall? Do I really kind of want to come in and crowd it? Is the design meant to flow off the edge and sort of disappear? That kind of thing. So with this one, probably since we don't have a very defined edge on it, like there's no straight border or something like that, I would probably tend to come in a little bit closer to it. I'd lean a little more to that 1/4 inch instead of the 3/8 of an inch. In this case, I will tell you, I actually did do the 3/8 because, again, I sort of wanted that Hygge feeling. I was sort of looking at the piece and seeing what I wanted it to convey. So I just wanted a little more space around it. And I know it comes down to 1/8 of an inch, but sometimes that 1/8 of an inch makes all the difference in the world. So I'm going to measure to see how wide I need my board. So I have to measure the outer edge of the design stitched image to the other outer edge of the design. So now there's a couple ways you can do this. I mean, it's all really this, you're getting the same thing. This is just how I tend to do it. I get one of my rulers, and I have a variety of sizes and whatnot. I just chose this yellow ruler. This ruler is kind of got like a yellow film to it because it's easier to see on camera, quite frankly. But you can see I lined up my ruler on the outer edge of the stitching. And when it has an uneven border, you do have to kind of look, okay, what's the outer point? And it just so happens that it's the reindeer's turned neck there to the reindeer's tail. And this gives me, I measure that, it's somewhere between, it's actually, if you look on that, hold it up, see if you can see it a little bit better. It lies somewhere between the 2 1/8 and the 2 1/4. So in this case, what I do is I always kind of round it up to the 2 1/4 because I could be, when I lace it, I stretch so we could go to the 2 1/4. I always test the image before I cut anything. So if I feel like it's too big, I can at least have the luxury of being able to trim down my mat board and not just cut an entirely new mat board because I made it too small. And then just quickly, and sorry, I don't mean to be so scattered. This is just regular mat board, regular thickness. There's nothing special to it. I got this from my local hobby store. It is not acid free. I feel okay that this will stand the test of time of what I need it to do. All right, you can get the acid-free if you so choose. So, all right, so you could say, all right, I want to add the 3/8. So from here, you can say 2 1/4 plus 1 2 3, 1 2 3, and that gets us to 3 inches. That's how wide we need to cut our board. A little trick that I learned back years and years ago when I was doing custom framing, I actually say, okay, I know I want a 3/8 inch border all around. And I know 3/8 and 3/8 is 6/8 or 3/4 math, you know. So we'll go 1 2 3, 1 2 3. I find my 3/4 inch mark on the ruler, and then I actually put that 3/4 inch mark on the edge of the piece, just like that. And then I come over here, and again, I know it's hard to see because that last stitch is actually lighter than the dark brown, and it's oh so close to the 3 inches. It is close enough that I'm going to call this 3 inches. Again, we can always trim a little off if we need to. I'm going to write that down because just write it down. It's easy to forget. So then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to find my 3/8 mark, and that actually happens to be the top of one of his antlers. And the bottom is one of the trees down there. So that I would call that 4 3/8. All right, because it falls just in the middle of that 4 1/4 and 4 3/8. So again, I'm always going to go up. So we're going to do 4 3/8. You don't have to do that the way I measure it. You can actually just measure and say, okay, it's this, and then I'm going to add 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Same thing. We get 4 3/8. Okay, so we'll put the ornament aside for the moment. I know you want to make sure that your board is nice and square. I just happen to know that mine is square. I line it up on my cutting mat. It's probably about time for me to get a new cutting mat because I'm really wearing the same grooves. All right, so I'm lined up here and I'm lined up there. And where did my X-Acto go? Whoop, here we go. All right, open that up. Made sure I had a nice clean blade a little bit ago. And remember, I want this 3 inches wide. So I'm going to line up my ruler on the line at the 3 inch mark because I lined up here, counted 1 2 3 inches. I'm going to hold it. And you always want to cut, when you're using an X-Acto, you cut towards yourself. When you're using a rotary cutter, you cut away from yourself. And I'm not going to try and go through this in the first swoop. All right, and I'm really holding this ruler in place with my hand so it doesn't jiggle or shift, and the blade butts up against the ruler, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to score it several times. Yep, there we go. So we can cut that off. All right, so what was that height? We've got the 3 inch width. Now we need 4 3/8. All right, line that up again. All right. And again, as I repeat, you may have a better or a different way to do it. You do that. This is just how I do it. I feel like I've been finishing since the dawn of time. I started finishing, oh gosh, I don't know, 26 plus years ago. Back before I even really started officially in this industry. And I've learned a lot of things along the way. I still do a lot of things very old school. There's probably some new technologies that would help me, but this is what I know and this is what I like to do. And you really need very few tools this way. So 4 3/8. And I love that everybody, I really feel like lately it just seems like stitchers are so much more willing to try the finishing. I love this. 1 2 3 4 3/8. So I'm lining up with my ruler on the 3/8 mark. It's kind of hard to see with the camera in the way, but we're gonna get there. All right, and here we go again. All right, and we now have a rectangle that is 3 inches wide by 4 3/8. Now at this point, if my piece wasn't already finished, what I would do is I would put this behind the stitching and I would hold it up to the light somewhere to make sure that I like the overall size of it. And so yeah, so I would kind of do something like that. All right, so very quickly, I'm going to cut a second piece because we're going to need it, just to kind of show you again. Now yours may vary. You might have used a different linen in the general cutting direction. So that's why I showed you how I measure. I'm a very firm believer in, I don't necessarily want to just give you the measurements and yeah, I'll do the templates, but your fabric might be slightly different than mine. There's different weaves. Some might have a tighter warp and weft than others. If you used a hand-dyed or a printed, that can change the overall size of the linen. Some linens are not square, all sorts of things. So this is why I prefer to teach you how to get the correct measurement. All right. So I have 2 boards now, and I'm gonna, yep, they're the same. So one will be my front and one will be my back. All right. Now, so let me finish that thought. I prefer to teach you how to figure out what size this should be. And that's what I do a lot of times in my finishing classes. I sometimes maybe make you take some what you might deem unnecessary steps, but I do it in the name of teaching you how to do it so that when you're at home working on your finishes, you might go, oh gosh, I don't know how to do this, but wait, this seems like something I might have learned here. And then you can apply those steps to your finishing. Because the flat finish, really, I joke sometimes in class that I call it sort of, maybe I shouldn't say that. Well, I'm not going to say that, but it's really the gateway to all finishes. And because so many, even just the basic shaped pieces, I'm getting ready to teach a class this weekend that has all sorts of shaped pieces to create something dimensional, and it all starts with a flat finish. So if you master the flat finish, there is nothing you can't do. All right, but now we want to get that curve at the top. Now I could totally just, take my pencil and just kind of flesh it out and do something like that. But this is goofy. All right, remember I talked about this little guy right here? You can have all sorts of things in your studio. Search for, rounded things. Sometimes I use this. Sometimes I use this. And it's not about what's in it. It's about the shape of the container. I even have this handy dandy little ruler. It's a bendable ruler that, see, it's got the measurements on both sides in both centimeters and inches. And it, I can do all kinds of things with it and make it goofy shapes and it stays. And so I can get a very custom look with this. I can say, oh, I like this. But sometimes if I'm traveling, I don't necessarily have this with me, but I always seem to have a tape dispenser. It's goofy, I know, but very low tech. I mean, all of this is very low tech. What I like is I like the curved edges. And while I like this one and I like that one, here, I'll move this so you can see. I actually really like this curve because we've got the straight side here and then we've got that gentle curve up to the top. Can you see? See what I did there? That is that curve right there. Okay, so what I like to do, I feel like it just got brighter out there in the world. Everybody went, oh, so I'm actually gonna lay this on top of one of my mat board pieces. I'm lining up that straight edge. And I'm just drawing a line right there, just like that, okay? Then I want one on the opposite side too. So I have to go like this, just so I can get it at the same angle. And I'm holding that tape in there funny just because I lost a piece on the tape dispenser and the tape falls out if I just pick it up. So I lined it up here and I'm lining it up there and I'm going to draw another line. I know, it's so hard, isn't it? So there we go. I've got this way, I've got both not equal curves, all right? And then I'm going to, where's my, okay, here we go. And I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut along that line. And this way you have very little cutting. We've done the straight edges with, all right. We've done the straight edges with the ruler and the X-Acto, and then this is the only portion that you have to hand cut. All right, look at that. Ta-da! I have a custom shaped finish. It is really just as simple as that. It doesn't get any easier. Unless, of course, you send it off and somebody else does it, then it's pretty easy. All right, so there we go. You can kind of see how that fits just like that. And we get a nice custom little look. Now, we have two pieces of this ornament. So I've got this one that's still a square. Instead of, I don't want you to go and do this and that again. What I want you to do is use this one as a template. So we're gonna lay it on there. And I'll tell you about that in a second. I'm gonna go like this and like that. Because we are hand cutting this, okay? Is it absolutely 100% perfect? No. So that's why we want to, whatever we do here, once we are satisfied with it here, we can transfer what we've done here to here. So then we have a matched set. Now you're gonna notice I've got like this little burr here. Let me grab, oh boy, wasn't planning on this. Okay, I like to keep a bunch of these fun nail files on hand. Who's this one? Ooh, Stitcher's Paradise. All right, fun store in Las Vegas. Ever been there? I haven't. Someday I will be. But I like to actually keep these on hand. And I kind of smooth out the edges. So any little burrs, they just go away. All right, another handy little low-tech tool to have on hand. All right, so I'm ready to cut this one. Gonna do it again. Just a simple little right on the line. And I do know, I mean, I have arthritis in my hands and I know a lot of people have, so that I try to keep the, precision cutting like this to a minimum. All right, I think that looks pretty good, but what I want to do is hold it up because a lot of times when you've got the width of the pencil, so the line isn't exactly on, so I do find I have to go back sometimes. So if you can see, the back one is slightly larger. Now, if this was a needlepoint finish, I'd be okay with that. But this is cross stitch. So I'm actually going to go in there again and mark. And you could say, well, why don't you just cut inside the line? Yes, you can do that too. I just like to get as exact as I possibly can. So now you can see on here where I've got, I can see my pencil lines. And go right on that line. This is nothing to be intimidated by. This is so simple. Very easy steps. Just kind of enjoy the process. I feel like I have a little bump right there. So rather than cut, because at some point you got to go, you can't keep cutting because then I've had that discussion with you before in videos about, the bangs moment, like, are my bangs straight? No, I just need a little trim here. Oh no, now I need a little trim there. And then you end up with bangs that are way too short. I have the grade school pictures to prove it. So I trimmed that a little bit. Let's line them up. Oh yeah. Now we have a nice, good fit. Our front board and our back board match. Here's another little trick. I open these up because I'm going to want this to be my outside and that to be my outside. So I want to make sure they're lined up. I put a little star on the inside so that the stars align when you go to finish it. Okay, that is how you get a custom piece of mat board to finish. You can do the same thing. Obviously, this one's a little bit shorter, a little bit wider. Again, shorter, wider, narrower, taller. And with each one of these, I use the tape dispenser. And again, what I really like is it's got this one straight edge. And we're not even talking the expensive tape. This is no 3M here. This is probably like brand tape, which is why my whatever fell off here, and then this thing keeps falling out. But anyway, so I keep one of those on hand. You would think I would be smart enough to keep one on hand, but nope. All right, so talk a little bit more about this. I'm going to put star sides down. And I, usually when I do ornaments, I always, under my linen, I lace everything, especially when you're going to have a shape like this, you're going to want to lace. I always put at least 2 layers of batting. Where's my ornament? I usually put 2 layers of batting under the front portion, under my stitch portion. And really, it depends on what I want the overall look to. Again, it goes back to a whole lot of judgment calls and what it is you want to see. But a lot of times I'll just put 1 layer behind the fabric. Again, what cute fabric. And it really does go, both of those colors are in there, but it also brings up those other little pops. We could do a whole other video on, like I said before, on how to select fabrics. And this one I just got from my stash. So, but you'll see as I'm talking, I put 2 pieces of double-sided tape on my pieces. What I did, again, leaning into that whole hygge thing, is I wanted these to kind of evoke a certain feeling. So I wanted them to be just a little cushier, a little softer, a little plumper. So I actually put, I wish I could remember, 3 to 4. I feel like I did these so long ago. I put 3 to 4 layers of batting underneath my linen side. And then I did put 2 on the back. I know that for sure, which is more than I normally do, but you can kind of see they're just sort of scrunchy that way. I don't know what, it just makes them soft and adorable. And just, I don't know. I just really like the overall look of it. Very hygge. Okay, so I'm going to take my front piece, put this aside for the moment, and I keep little scraps of the batting, and I put a little piece of the double-sided tape. I put that down. There's my, cut this, cut that. And I'm going to go with 3 for starters. I can't remember. I think that was what it is. Okay, so now I need to trim my batting down. And I'm going to do all 3 layers at the same time. What I like to do, and I say this in all my tutorials, I leave a scant bit showing beyond the edge of the mat board, which is about 1/16 of an inch. And that is really important in this particular finish, as we will be going through the edge as we finish these together. So I'm going to trim. And I am really just eyeballing that. You're talking to somebody who's done this many times. And again, if you leave too much, you can always go back and cut more. I want to trim a little bit more there. And I'm just going to take a little bit there. We don't want it too bulky, but now sometimes when I wanted a mound, like I call it like mound my ornaments, I will put several more layers in here and I will cut them progressively smaller and smaller and then cover them with one final layer of batting. That kind of gives it a domed look. I wanted this to be padded all over. I wasn't as concerned about having more of that domed look. So I'm going to go with 3. You might want to try a 4th. I'm pretty sure I used 3. Why would I have written that down? No idea. All right, and here's my back with the fabric. And this is why we keep all the scraps. Can I make it fit? No, gosh darn it. I need a slightly bigger scrap. Never fear, I've got it. Okay, and this will be the back of my back piece. Now, I don't have another stitched piece to show you. I will go through how I laced these, although at this point I am going to refer you to one of the tutorials, the static tutorials that's on my website. It's for my 12 Days of Christmas ornaments. It's called 12 Days. I actually have photos of step-by-step how I lace curved edges, and I think that's very, very helpful. So I highly suggest you can print it out. You can scroll through it on the blog or the post in the tutorial section of my website. You can also print a copy of it for your records. And again, all those images and words and everything are my own, are hands-on design, and are copyrighted. Okay, so what I would do at this point is we're going to presume that I have centered this. This is the right size. I'm going to trim my linen down to probably about 3/4 of an inch from the edge. Those kind of instructions you would find on the 12 Days tutorial. Now, I will say for this, because this is antique white linen, I would also have put a layer on top of the batting, because the batting is a creamy ecru-y color. You can purchase it in white. It's not always easy to find, but if you have what you keep on hand in your studio, your home studio, is cream, you're probably going to want to put a layer of, say, white muslin. You can usually get that, by the yard. It's not expensive, but keep that on hand, because what happens is if you put this white linen over top of that, it sort of tends to dull the overall finish, and we want to keep it nice and kind of bright. So much like I cut a layer of the batting to fit on here, I would cut a piece of the white muslin and just treat that as if it was another layer of the batting, and you're going to cover it. Much like I also, when I'm lacing something on, say, that, because I like to do a lot of chalkboard design and whatnot, I would put a piece of black muslin there as well. And I've done that with other colors too. The Polar Plunge ornaments that were on kind of a tealy linen, I actually put a layer of teal. I don't want the creaminess of this to dull any of my stitching. You go to such lengths to do that, of course. We don't want to dull any of your stitching. Now, for purposes of this, I'm actually going to finish both the front and the back with a piece of this white cotton. This is actually not muslin. This is a little thicker. It's a quilting cotton. It's a Moda solid. And I'm going to cut a piece just to show you the lacing. I figured having the white will be able to show off the stitches a little bit better. We're going to pretend that that's pressed. Don't worry about it. And I'm going to trim it a little bit closer. And you can see I'm just kind of guessing. It doesn't have to be a perfect arch, a perfect circle. In this case, I'll probably trim a little bit more. That's about an inch. Let's go a little bit closer. This would be, I'm doing muslin instead of your stitching, just because I don't have a second one stitched. And I did want to demonstrate this. So, all right. So I'm ready to begin lacing this piece. I've got a needle threaded up with some lacing thread, a long length of lacing thread. I don't like to have to stop and start mid-lace. That's just me. Let's move all this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to come in a little bit closer. All right, so I like to go across the longest straight edge first, and I like to go top down. If I'm a righty, if you're a lefty, turn it the other way. So I like to fold it this way. I've made sure that my image on the front was centered, or as centered as I can make it at this point. I like to do work on the tabletop. I don't like to hold it like this and do this. I actually like to use the tabletop as sort of my third hand, because I'm pushing down on this so nothing is scooting around too much. I'm using it as, I don't know, leverage. I don't know, is that what that is? That what that is? Anyway, and I fold the edges over because I'm going to be lacing in the selvage. And I lace with a scooping stitch. So you can see I take like a sewing stitch in and out parallel to the cut edge and the side. You can see, yep, I got a nice long strand there with a knot in the end, a good hearty knot. And I'm going to take a second stitch fairly close to that first stitch to really just anchor it. Okay. I'm going to come across and I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm using a sharp needle. This is a slightly larger needle. You can use a chenille needle, an embroidery needle. And you can see I am pulling on it as I go, and I'm using both hands. This is a two-handed process. I'm going to put my finger down on this so I can let go, and it's not going to loosen anything that I've already just laced. And I'm going to continue to take my lacing stitches. You don't have to do them overly close, but you don't want them to be overly wide. My stitches are probably about a 1/2 inch separated and a 1/2 inch deep or wide. And yes, sometimes you do get knots because I'm using such a long thread. Most of the time we can get those knots out. This is what happens when you just are filming and you go, let's just film. That's when you get a knot. Stop and get the knot out. I'm going to stop right here. Okay, so I had to stop the camera so I could actually see that knot and get it out, no problem. And you can see I'm taking that scooping stitch halfway, kind of in the middle of that selvage. We don't want it too close to the cut side, and we don't want it too close to the I call it the wall side or the creased side. And I'm just going to go back and forth. You can see I'm really pulling nice and tight. That's what gives us that nice taut look on the front. And I do have 1x1 images on that 12 days tutorial. If you want to slow down and examine each picture, I highly suggest checking that out on handsondesign.biz website. All right, so I am coming close to where, as I said, I like to lace across the longest straight edge first. And I'm coming close to where we're starting to curve a little bit. So I'm gonna take one more stitch here. Pull this one nice and tight, and then I am going to go across to here and one last little stitch and pull it nice and tight. All right, and then I'm actually going to go through that same spot again and make a little knot, kind of a safety knot, so I can let go of all this and not worry that my see, now I can let go and none of my stitches came loose. And this is when we want to turn it over. Of course, I've got nothing here. This is where your stitching would be. We can double check before we go. Make sure that we're still centered. Am I centered top to bottom? Did we? Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Oh, no, I'm a little off. So I'm going to scoot the linen around till I'm nice and centered. All right. I like the way that looks, because then once I turn it over and I start attaching the top to the bottom, there is really, at that point, you're locked into place. You still have a little bit of a give, but really you're locked into place. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to baste across this top to gather all that in, much like if you were finishing a circle. Okay, so I'm going to do that first. And I work from one long thread. This is why I like to have one long thread. Then I don't have to do all the starts and the stops. And you can see I'm taking a nice basting stitch. All right, I do a couple at a time. If you just have to do one at a time, then do one at a time. Like I said, remember, I've been doing this a while. I'm gonna pull that nice and tight. And I'm gonna take a couple more. All right, halfway there. Let's do a couple more. Oh, not again. The nice thing about working with this heavier lacing thread is obviously you can see I am pulling pretty darn tight on it. But if it does get a knot, those generally come out pretty easily. I would say too, when I teach lacing, so now that is the number one thing I have. I always like kind of go around and, you know, give everybody a few tips and tricks, like what to work on for next time. And invariably, I would say with the majority of people in class, if this is their first time lacing, is I always say pull tighter. And when you think it isn't pulled tight enough, pull tighter. It's kind of like stuffing a pillow. If you think it's not stuffed enough, stuff. If you think it's stuffed enough, stuff a little bit more. And I'm gonna just hold that there, and you can see now we're nice and curved. I've got a few little bumps. We're gonna take care of that. All right, so I'm going to pull that nice and tight, and I'm going to make another anchoring or safety knot. And yep, it can get a little tricky because I'm holding it nice and tight, and that's why I'm using the top of the table as a little leverage underneath. So there, I've made that little safety knot. And so you can see I've now basted my way across the top. I've got a couple little creases here. Nothing's showing too badly to the front. Got a couple little frifts, but we'll take care of all that. So now what we're gonna do, I turn it this way. Where's my thread? Okay, my thread is now here. So I'm actually going to turn this under and we'll lace back and forth, and that'll take care of all those little divots. So now you'll notice that I have laced tight enough that my fabric naturally sort of curves in down here, which is perfect. That's exactly what you want, because I want to fold this over. And you can see it's like a present. So it kind of angles in like that because we don't want to turn it over and see linen or anything hanging out the edge. All right, so I'm going to turn that over like that, and then I'm going to go out to the very tip. And remember, I'm still using that same thread. I haven't started or stopped. I mean, it's okay if you want to do that, work with it. If you're not just like Cathy, I can't do the really long thread, it knots too much. That's fine. Just, you know, you're just going to keep ending and beginning a new thread each time. So I took a little tacking stitch from the selvage to the folded, way out at the corner. This is how I get nice corners, nice crisp corners. Then I'm going to take another one, and I'm going to work my way down the fold. And usually I get about 3 stitches in. Okay, pull that nice and tight. Let's do one more. And I am using a sharp needle. I said that before. You could use an embroidery needle or quilter. All right, so then you can see I get a nice crisp corner. Okay, so I've worked my way down. I did 1 basting stitch, the 2nd basting stitch, and the 3rd. Now I am ready to lace back and forth again. I'm gonna turn that over, so pull that nice and tight. And then I come up here and I'm gonna grab some of the gathers. And I'm gonna come down here just like we did before. See, similar motion. See, nothing new here. It's all just lacing back and forth. Make sure you don't stitch your tail in. I was teaching a class one time, and it was many years ago, and I kept saying, don't stitch your tail. And I had a student come up to me and she said, you know, that would make a good cross stitch chart. That's a good metaphor for life. And I thought, man, isn't that the truth? Don't stitch your tail in. Okay, so I've made it all the way to the other edge. See, now I have a nice smooth edge. Any of those little divots that were showing before are gone. I got one little one here, but I think I just haven't pulled tight enough. Yeah, let's just pull. I'm gonna pull on that a little bit more. I'm actually gonna take my needle. I'm gonna go right through it. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to come back to this side, and you'll notice I've got that fold like I did on this side. So I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did over there. I'm going to end that way. I bring my needle, my thread all the way over, and I'm going to go right to the corner, go through the selvage, through the corner, through the fold. And I'm going to do that a couple more times. And just basically I'm locking that fold down and giving myself a nice crisp corner in the process. Sorry, I didn't mean to knock that. And I'm happy. One last knot. Sure. Right as we're done. Okay, make a loop. Give it a nice tight. And check one more time. Yes, doesn't that look lovely? I'm nice and centered. I'm going to take another knot, make another knot. If you're going to end here, I always do a couple knots. So I've done two, probably could do a third for sure. And then what I do is I take my needle and I run it through the linen and I run it away from where I placed the knots. And then that's where I'm going to cut it. Okay, I never like to cut right next to the knot because that's a weak spot, and we don't want to have that. All right, so there you go. Now, if you worked with like a stiff Aida, that kind of thing, where you've got a lot of bulk back here, you could carefully go in and just trim a little bit of the excess away. The way I do the bottom, I usually get my bottom nice and flat. You can also give this a nice press with the iron and really flatten all that because, you know, we're going to be putting it together with another piece and we don't want our corners to bulge up. There are some tips and tricks around that too, but this is actually a pretty thick cotton, so I did get a little bulk here in the corners. But again, I would maybe go in and trim that a little bit if you want to. It's not necessary. So I'm going to shut the camera off real quickly and go, because you don't need to see it again. I'm going to go ahead and do the back, lace that, and so then we'll get on to how I finish it. Okay, and we're back. So I now have my front laced and it's nice and poofy, and I have my back laced and it's got a little extra poof to it. This is what it looks like with 3. I would think that that's what I used. You might even try a 4th. I just to give it a little extra cushion. And I think that would be perfectly acceptable and quite lovely. So remember I mentioned about those stars on the inside. You don't have to do stars, any kind of insignia or scribble or whatever, just so we remember. That's the way they go because that's how we cut them. And we've got that nice, perfect fit. All right. Before now we get to the actual, how do we get them sandwiched together? What I want to talk to you too about is, remember with these, I did have that pretty little topper, the wool felt ball, and then of course the baker's twine. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is actually anchor the baker's twine in between your layers. We'll do the wool felt ball actually after everything's all put together. So I cut a nice long length of baker's twine. I found this pretty brown and cream baker's twine that sort of matched my ornaments, and baker's twine comes in all different colors. Just, you know, I mean, I hate to say just Google it, but seriously, just Google it. And I get, this is kind of a raisiny color. There's all different colors. And, you know, a lot of times they come in big spools like this, so they last you forever and they're not horribly expensive. I will say I have a nice generous selection of colors. And much like over the years, I've kind of developed a little ribbon habit. I also now have a baker's twine habit. And I may have quite a few spools of a flamingo pink and white and also a black and white. I just keep buying them. I don't know why. So, so what we want to do is open these up. I'm going to move the little balls out of the way. And then I'm going to take my length. Let's see, how long did I cut? I cut mine about, let's see, that's 15, 16 twice. So like 30 inches, anywhere from 24 to 30 inches. That's way more than you're actually going to need, but I always like to, you know, cut a little longer than you think you might need. So I've doubled it over. So I've got a loop end, and I'm going to take that loop end and make a little knot. And then I'm actually going to then on my back side, I'm going to cut a little piece of the double-sided tape, just a small piece like that. And yep, that's my back side. So I'm going to put it up here kind of at the top center mark. Use your nail to really kind of adhere it to both the mat board, the threads, and the paper. And if you can get a corner adhered really well, then that's where you can lift it up. Or you can always grab your handy dandy little X-Acto and expose that tape. And then I'm going to lay, let's see, I'll find my center. I'll kind of lay this on I'm lining it up with my grid, and I'm going to lay it in there, in that exposed. So, and I put a knot in there just to kind of give it something to really grab onto. And there you go. So we'll work with this hanging off hanging out from the middle of the ornament. It shouldn't get in the way too much. And then if you want to, and if you want to put another little piece of tape down here, just to sort of help hold them together as we're doing this little crossed edge, that would be fine. I'm actually pretty comfortable holding them together. That gives me enough of a support. So I'm going to lay this on there, make sure we're nice and yep. Oh, but let's see. Hold on. These keep rolling into the way. So what I did do is I got a little embroidery needle. This is probably like a number 7. That tends to be what I use a lot. And I got one nice long strand of a dark DMC because I used whichever the let me double check. Yes, I did 2 strands. Whatever that, I think it's 08, 07, 08, whatever that color is that I used. And pretty much in each of the colorways, that dark brown is what I used on all the edges. It really worked for them, even with the varying colorways and the fabrics on the back. Look at that fun fabric. Isn't that cool? Okay, so actually before I sandwich them together, I am going to anchor my floss in the bottom corner. I tend to like, when I'm attaching my front to my back, I always tend to start in the again, I like going on the straight edge first, the long straight edge. So I typically start in the lower right corner. If you're a lefty, we're probably talking opposite there. So I'm going to anchor my thread here on the inside, kind of in the corner area. And we're essentially starting with a loop method because I used a really long strand of DMC, doubled it over. There's my loop. All right, and now I am secure. What I want to do is, because we're just anchoring it on the inside, all the rest of the work is going to be done on the outside. So I want to bring my needle and thread to that area. So I'm going to run it through the linen, in this case it's the white muslin, and bring it out at the corner. So that's our good starting spot. All right, now I can get my front, this would be my stitching, line those up. And some people, I know you like those little clippy things, those can work too. Just, as you go, this will really start pulling together. And again, I'm using the white linen with the really dark thread because I really want you to be able to see the stitch. Okay, so basically when I do what I call like that naked edge, and I do the traditional slip stitch, and I don't want you to see the thread at all that's lacing, I would actually pull my thread straight across, and my needle, there's my needle, and my needle would go in here, and then under the fabric, it would have a diagonal movement, and I would come out over here. I bring my needle up over here again, and again with that diagonal movement. So that slanted stitch, that diagonal stitch, would all be under or inside the linen and the batting. We're going to actually do the opposite of that. Now, instead of having the thread come across, I actually want it to come on an angle. How big of an angle? That is really up to you. Let's see, which one can I show you that I think it's easiest to see? I don't know, those are probably about maybe like 3/8 of an inch, about 3/8 of an inch wide. And you want to be fairly consistent, although perfect, nope. So we're going to take this on an angle, and actually I'm going to move my thread just a little bit. I want to come out a little further on the, still on the top side, on the very edge, but a little closer to the outside edge than the inside edge, because I really want this stitch to be seen. So all I'm doing there is I'm varying my starting position. I feel like a horse race. Gentlemen, and get into, ladies and gentlemen, get into your starting positions. Okay, so now I'm going to pull that thread on the diagonal, and I'm going to pick my spot, and I'm going to go through my linen straight across, catching the opposite side. All right. So you can see I've got that long stitch really showing, and I know it's not pulling together as tightly just yet. It will as you get going. Okay, that first stitch is always, it's never going to pull it as tight as you want to. It'll work its way. So then we're going to, so we went straight across with the needle, and that's just basically the direction you're going to be going this whole time. The thread's going to come on the diagonal, and I hold it like that to kind of give me a guide as to where I want my needle to go. And it went straight through the edge on the front, the stitching side and your backing side. And good to point out here, remember when I said you want to leave a scant bit of the batting showing on the outside edge of your board back a little bit ago when we were doing those first steps? This is exactly why, because I'm going through the edge. And so I'm catching not just the fabric, the linen, the Aida, and the backing fabric, but I'm also going through that batting, and I'm not hitting the mat board and basically killing my hand. So I'm gonna pull that through, and I'm gonna do it again. And you don't have to hold your hands like this. I'm doing it just so you can get the best angle of how this is going. And to me, once you kind of get the rhythm of this, it's very soothing. And you'll say, but you made an X. Yep, yes, I did. We're going to do this in 2 journeys. We're going to do the first part of the X. And then when we work our way around the second time, the first journey makes it so much easier on the second journey because we're just following the same path. All right, and we're getting ready to see how that's looking. And we're getting ready to come to the curve, and we just keep working that equal length of the stitches. You can see I'm throwing the thread across each time so you can get the general idea of where you want your thread to be, to make that as a guide. Are my stitches perfectly even? Probably not, but that's okay. In the end, by the time we cross over it twice, you're really not going to notice that the stitches are different. Plus, I'm doing this on plain white fabric, and when you have your print fabric on the back, that covers a lot. All right, so you can kind of see I'm just continuing on the curved edge. Excuse me. See how that looks? I think this is a fun finish, and quite frankly, to me it's even easier than the opposite, the slip stitch, although I find that one fun too. All right, so now we're coming up to the top center where I've got my my hanger, my baker's twine hanger, and it was kind of flopped over to the edge. So make sure that it's still centered, and I'm just going to kind of pretend it's not even there. I actually feel like I'm going to come on this side of it. And see there, we just did that. We just pretended like that wasn't even there. And now actually by doing this, it keeps that in the correct place. It sort of locks that into place, which is why we want to double check to make sure that it is where it's supposed to be. I'm getting into this stitch and I got to make sure I stay on camera. Oh, got a little knot. And again, this is just two strands of, and a sharp needle, 2 strands of embroidery floss. I started with the loop method. And I'm coming down the curve here, getting ready to go back into the straight edge. I'm gonna stay on camera and do this whole thing, so I'm just gonna kind of babble here, or be quiet, just so you can watch. And I'm grabbing a good bit of the edge there. You can see I've actually probably got like about a 1/16 of an inch there and a 1/16 of an inch there on both the back and the front. And I'm pulling tight each time. You do have to be careful because this is not the like upholstery weight thread, so you don't want to break your cotton, but you do want to pull nice and tight because this is the only way we're attaching the front to the back. Coming down the straight edge here, the long side, and I'm coming into the first corner because up till now we started at the corner, and then we did curves. And because I'm eyeballing this, I really want that. I want to end with my last needle motion at the corner. So if some of those stitches as we get into the corner are a little bit shorter, that's okay. Really, nobody's going to be looking at that. Okay, so you can see I'm kind of hitting my corner there. And I just turn. How easy is that? I love this. A lot of it is you just have to get comfortable. As cross stitchers, on linen or Aida, even if it's teeny tiny little Aida or linen 55, you crazy 55 threads per inch people out there. I admire you. My hat's off to you. I cannot see that, but this finish works for everybody, and we're so used to having a hole to come up, a hole to go down. So sometimes I know people get a little nervous when they have to kind of gauge it, just kind of eyeball. That's okay. It's fun. Practice. And remember the hygge. That word, since working on this project, I realized so many moments in my life where I have kind of unknowingly embraced the hygge, and I have brought it so much more into certain aspects of the way I view things, and I just love it. Okay, so I'm going to take one more through the corner, and we have completed round 1. Who's ready for round 2? Hopefully I have enough to go through. So I can't go like that, or I'm just going, I'm not creating that X. So I'm actually going to take a little, I'm on my needle and thread have come out on the back corner, this is the backing. So now I'm going to bring it over to here, carry the needle and thread over. I'm going to grab a little bit of the fabric in the corner on the front side. And now I'm ready to do the same thing, but I'm crossing that X. And I don't even have to really think about much this time because I'm going to use my previous stitches as a guide. See? Look how easy that is. And if I hit exactly on, great. If I'm close, I'm good with that too. I have a feeling I'm not going to make it on thread though. Nope, almost started stitching my tail in. So as you can see, I'm using my previous stitch as a guide for this second round. Oh, sorry, every time I do that, I hit the stand. All right. And look how cool that is. So that's the first side. Huh? Are my stitches perfect? No. Has this been fun to do? Absolutely. Is it giving it just a little bit of, just a little extra texture? Yes, and that's exactly what I wanted it to do. All right. Here we go back up to the, where the baker's twine is. I'm gonna actually put that on that side. And I'm going to come around it, really locking that into place. Oh, I might make it. I'll keep going till the end here so I can show you how I end off the needle, especially if I have to start something. There's no real trick. A lot of times you just take a teeny tiny little stitch through the edge and then you kind of bury it through you bury it through the layers and cut it off. All right, doesn't that look super cool at the top? I just love it. All right, can we make it to the end with this thread? We're gonna cut it close. I want to speed up through this part because I don't know. Well, we might make it. See, I mean, I just think this is just such a fun way to bring, you know, to attach the front to the back. And turn that corner. Ooh, I might just make it. And I'm not even like thinking about it. I'm just kind of enjoying the silence. I'm enjoying talking to you. Trying to remember to stay on camera. Oh, I think I might make it. Yay, how awesome would that be? Isn't that like a win? Don't you just love it? Why is it we always get to like 1 or 2 stitches and we run out of thread? And by the time you get to this point, you're really not even having to pull on it that tight because it's pretty much all together. It's sandwiched together. If you keep pulling as you go, these last couple edges really don't need to be pulled. All right, so we got 2 more to go. Yay, I think we're gonna make it with this thread that I have, this floss. I'm gonna take that last stitch. Oop, didn't mean to do that. And so look at that, very cool. And like I said, I did it with the dark on the white, just so you could, you know, get a better visual of it. So now how to end. So I'm just gonna go right through the corner there, put my needle through some of the little excess thread. Of course, I'm so close that I just unthreaded. Oh, darn. And rather than struggle to kind of show, oh, well, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm not gonna do that on camera though. I need a scissors, give me a nice clean edge. Oop. Let's get the end with the eye, Cathy. Yay, that wasn't so bad. Okay, so I'm going to take another knot, just another little running through the corner. You'll be able to pull it tight and bury it. Nobody's going to see it's there. All right, so I feel like that's good enough. Now I'm going to take my needle and go right back through the edge, and you can see it's coming out over here. Give it a little tug, and we're going to trim that thread. And ta-da! You have, I don't don't know, I got to come up with a name for this. The cross stitch edge, we'll call it that. The Hygge cross stitch edge. I think that's kind of fun, except now we need to get that part done. We need to get that little palm attached. So this is what I did. I actually made a knot right here. So I took my two lengths. That's why I gave us extra. And I'm going to tie a little square knot. All right, sometimes it just kind of gives it a nice little crisp finish. All right, so we've got that little knot right there. Then we need to feed it through the wool felt ball. Now these are just, I mean, a wool felt by its nature, it's just all wool fibers that have been mushed together. So you can put a needle through this, you can cut it in half, you can do all sorts, you can reshape it, you can do all sorts of things to this. So I'm gonna get a nice, kind of a bigger needle. It's kind of a dull tip. It should work. A sharp tip would be fine too. Dull needle, anything like that, but a bigger needle. And I'm going to go right through the middle of this is what I will say why it's kind of good to have a sharp one sometimes, but you can get that dull one through. And I went right through the middle. All right. And I just kind of want to work it through there, twirl the little wool felt ball around. Obviously the head of the needle, the eye of the needle is a little thicker, so you can even kind of work that through it just to open that up and kind of create a channel through the middle. Okay. If you happen to have even a bigger needle, is that one bigger? No, I think that's about the same. Maybe try. Okay. So now you can sort of see where I made that initial hole. I'm going to feed something else through it, just to kind of keep that channel open. Because then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take both ends of my baker twine, and this is baker's twine, and you have to have a big eye because we wanted to put both of those through. And where'd the hole go? Right there. Now this is when it's handy to have a needle nose and pull that through. See? That's why it's definitely helpful to open up a channel in that first. Pull it all the way down like that. And I'm going to make another knot to keep that in place. Kind of my version of a square knot. Okay, so there we go, yay! So now all you have to do is figure out what kind of drop you want for your ornament, and then do an overhand knot here. I typically like a 3-inch drop. So I measured on there, and I'm going to do a little overhand knot. And then I'm going to cut that. And then even just that little bit of, cut at the top is kind of a cute little added texture as well. I like to do that sometimes, like with even twisted cord, like DMC twisted cord, and it almost makes it look like a little tassel on top. But there you go then. You are ready to hang. You've got that sweet little embellishment on top. And you now know how I make a custom shaped board. It's all in the Scotch tape. And then adding just that fun, sweet little embellishment and doing that fun Hygge giant cross edge like that, just to give it a little bit of extra texture. So I hope that you've learned a lot from this, and I really want to thank everybody for, I probably should turn the camera up, but that's okay. I want to thank everybody for participating in the Hygge holiday. It's been amazing, and I love seeing everybody's stitches, and after this, I hope I'm going to start seeing some of these sweet little finishes, and I wish you a happy Hygge holiday.